all of the good work that he has done is unfortunately overshadowed by, Oprah, Netflix, Spare, the mudslinging. Unfortunately, those are the noises that are much, much louder in this. And when we see him at the Invictus Games, you see the old Harry, the true Harry. He comes to life again.
Well, has he always been like this? Has he always been a divisive figure? You must have met him or interviewed him multiple times. Has he always been this, as a divisive figure?
No. I mean, Prince Harry was one of the most, if not the most popular member of the royal family because of his ability to relate to people. He was seen as relatable. Yes, there were the headlines about the party prince and whatever, but
that was part of his charm.
It was part of his charm, his ability to communicate with people. He was an extremely powerful force within the royal family because of that knack of reaching people that others couldn't. And he had his mother's touch in that way. And, I spent many years following him. I went to Lesotho with him, for example, in 2008. And there he was free of all of the constraints of palace life, of royal life. There was none of this suggestion of being the spare and the sibling rivalry. He was in Africa, a country he loves. He was honouring his mother's legacy. He was surrounded by army colleagues as they were building a centre for disabled children in this tiny African kingdom. He was working with children. Everything that brought him joy. He was free. He was alive. We know he's got a problem with the media, but actually he didn't show it there at all. He was very happy to have us there and on board. And I found him to be extremely engaging, extremely positive. He was doing so much good and he knew it. And it was his coming of age project really, wasn't it? It was putting aside the negative headlines, the Nazi uniform, for example, the kind of drugs, the partying. This was him saying, look who I am, look who I can be. And Centre Ballet's still going, the Invictus Games, superb. We need to see more of that side of Harry.
I do wonder, I'm just thinking back, at the beginning we were talking about William's project, Homers, because that's, Royal Foundation project. He's got the whole kind of royal family kind of royal household kind of system behind him, and he can go away for 5 years and really try and achieve stuff. And you say the Centre Ballet stuff that Harry was doing, he had this whole machinery behind him. Now he doesn't have any of that, and he is just becoming a divisive figure, picking up awards. And it is, we talk about this a lot, but you do kind of think what he could achieve if he was here as a working royal, because you saw that good work when you were in Africa.
Yeah, and when Harry spoke, people listened. And when Harry wanted something done, it was done. And you saw that in Lesotho with Centre Ballet, and that the pride that he got from something that started as a gap year project for him to then a lasting legacy, a project making a difference to a generation of young people, children, many of whom have been orphaned by HIV and AIDS, who contracted the disease themselves in the AIDS epidemic. He and Meghan both actually could have made such a difference. And particularly now, when you look at the royal family and how difficult and how thin on the ground they have been over the past few months with the absence of the King, the Princess of Wales. We've, of course, had Princess Anne's ill health lately as well. The role that, we're told Meghan didn't like playing second fiddle. Well, they wouldn't have been playing second fiddle right now, would they? They would have been front and centre, and they could have played such a key role. And I think it's really, really sad to see just how things have changed.
Well, they've gone.
They've
got their new life in California. Was Harry, was he one of the favourite people for you to interview? Or just a quick run through of anyone when
Prince
that
Harry
you spoke
and Prince
to?
Philip were two of my favourite members of the royal family, really, because they both had that same kind of twinkle, and you never quite knew what they were going to do next. I never got to interview the Duke of Edinburgh, the late Duke of Edinburgh. I did interview the Prince of Wales on several occasions, of course, because of his position as then heir to the throne now, then Prince of Wales. I'm talking about Prince Charles as he was in my time. you know, that was hugely significant, you know, going to interview the heir to the throne. And I always found him to be extremely charming, a details man, always across his brief. I mean, the one person that all of us would have wanted to interview was the late Queen. And you talked earlier about mystique and maintaining that mystique. She did it because she never gave a single interview. But, you know, I met her on multiple occasions. The very first occasion I met her was in Uganda at the Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting, and she and the Duke of Edinburgh hosted a reception for the journalists that were following them. We were all introduced to them. It was my first time, my first royal tour, and we were all incredibly nervous in the room. And thank goodness Arthur Edwards was there to give me a few pointers on what to do and how to address them and what to say and not to say, and save me in that instance.
But good old Arthur, he's bailed me out a few times.
Yeah, gold dust.
He's gold dust, isn't he? Based on all your knowledge and your experience of meeting members of the royal family and interviewing them, we have the dreaded quickfire questions. OK, if you're ready?
I'm ready.
Right, OK. So, we've got this one because I don't know if you've seen, Prince William was at the RAF Valley this week, going back to see his old unit, and he had a mug that said HRH, Prince of Wales. But when he was back in 2013, he had a mug saying Big Willie. OK, because that was his nickname on the base. OK, and yeah. So this is the reason for this one. What is the funniest or strangest royal family nickname that you've heard?
Well, of course, Mike Tyndall revealed his nickname for Prince William recently, which was on a similar theme, One Pint Willie, because of his lack of drinking prowess. They've got a lot of nicknames in the royal family. The late Queen had multiple. Gary, as she was called by a young Prince William, because as a toddler he couldn't say granny. And he was overheard shouting for Gary in one of the royal palaces, and someone was saying, "Who's Gary? Who's Gary?" And the Queen said, "Oh, that's me. He hasn't learnt to say granny yet."
I did not know that. No. That's really good.
And Prince Philip, she of course had Lilibet, which was her father's name for her. The great-grandchildren called her Gangan. But my favourite was Prince Philip's term of endearment for her, which was Cabbage.
Yes. Yes, you can imagine him saying it to her as well, can't you? Right, next question. Who is the smartest member of the royal family that you've interviewed?
Princess Anne.
OK.
I interviewed her at Buckingham Palace in her apartments at Buckingham Palace, and it was a very a difficult interview to do in many ways, because it was an interview to prepare obituaries for the late Queen and the Duke of Edinburgh. So it was sensitive, and we were all a little nervous as we were setting up for the interview. I was there with my crew, and we weren't expecting her for a while, but I turned around and realised there was a presence in the room, and Princess Anne had snuck in through a side door and was just observing. And she had multiple pointed questions to check that I was across my brief. But what I was most impressed with was that she went around and she introduced herself and shook hands with every single member of the crew. We sat down and we did the interview, and a lengthy interview. And at the end, she stood up and she thanked individually by name every single member of the crew that was in the room. And, you know, she knew that. I thought that was extremely, extremely important, because she knows when she meets someone, of course, they know who she is. But doesn't it mean a lot for her to remember a name?
That's incredible, yeah. So she remembered the names, went back, and that's...
And not just, you know, recognising me as the interviewer, but every single person who was playing a role in that.